It is my privilege to join the Eaton Media Group in honoring Reverend Jasper Williams for 50 years of pastoring. He is a giant in the work of the gospel. He impacted the civil rights movement, tens of thousands of parishioners' lives, millions of lives around the world, including my own. I remember in my early days in radio in Montgomery, Alabama, watching pastors speak of this man with awe and wonder as though he were a god or some kind of super preacher. He will tell you he is a man. We affirm that he's a legend. 8-time Emmy Award Winning journalist Maynard Eaton had a conversation with the Reverend Jasper Williams. We're going to share that conversation with you now.
Reverend Jasper Williams Jr., an iconic and legendary minister and preacher. 63 years you've been preaching, 50 years in this pulpit. What does that mean to you? What does that say about you?
Well, hopefully it says my life, Maynard, because that's really all that I've concentrated on through the years is preaching the gospel and shepherding in terms of pastoring these sweet people at this church for 50 years. So I'm 70 years old, been preaching 63 years, and pastoring this same church for 50 years.
Has much changed? Is the church, your words still meaningful, relevant?
I would like to think they are. The basic word has not changed. That's an excellent question you ask. The basic word of God has not changed. How we deliver that word, time has caused the change. And I've been privileged to see the pendulum shift from one extreme to another every 7 to 10 years. So out of the 5 decades of pastoring, and the 6 decades of preaching, I've seen the pendulum go from one extreme to another extreme. For example, when I started out as a kid, all the old preacher had to have was a hoop. If he knew how to put his hand in his ear and hold it a certain way and hoop with a pretty sound, he was looked upon as a great preacher. And then the day came to whereby you preached according to topics of songs. I Can't Lose with the Stuff I Use, If Walls Could Talk, all that kind of thing. It brought on the flamboyancy of preaching in that realm. And then it shifted again to becoming a kind of scriptural thing, where you've got to be able to expostulate and expose the Bible through alliterations. And now the church, in the upper part of this still new century, is questionable. We are at a point and juncture, I think, that it's very difficult to say just what direction the church is moving in, just what is going to happen. We are in a moment of transition, and it is questionable just what the church is doing right now.
But as a premier preacher, haven't you led or fomented many of these changes? And if so, where are you now?
Good question, Maynard. You've been practicing these questions, haven't you?
You've been my minister for a while.
Well, right now I see a sense of teaching. And I think that people are responding more to that kind of preaching. I've always tried to pride myself on being able to reinvent me.
Yeah.
And to reinvent myself according to the signs of the times. And so the sign of the time tells me that people have a thirst for knowledge meshed with truth. So knowledge, facts, meshed with truth, word of God, and then taught is what people respond to best.
What about you, Pastor? Do you still have a thirst for this profession, this calling?
Oh, yes. I have a thirst to preach. My thirst is quenched for pastoring, but I still am very thirsty for preaching the gospel.
There's a difference, is there?
There's a lot of difference. God calls you to preach. People call you to pastor. That's the major difference to me.
Your 50th anniversary coincidentally coincides with the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington.
Yes.
You were a major figure in the civil rights movement in terms of financing many of the things that happened.
Yes.
What's that transition been like? I mean, it's kind of ironic that the two anniversaries are synonymous.
Yes. Well, I'm disappointed in the civil rights movement to the point that the famed, well-known speech, "I Have a Dream," which, as you alluded, was at the same time that I came to Salem, has fastly and is fastly becoming a nightmare. I think that we as a people have disappointed the dreamer. However, difficulties contributes positive things in a lot of ways. Segregation brought to me, the African American community, its own economical situation. We had our own little cleaners, our own food, our own little hotel. It wasn't the best, but it was ours. Now we have access to the best, but nothing is ours. So the dream that the dreamer had, we have allowed to become a nightmare, because all of the morals and values of a people has totally disintegrated amongst us as African Americans. So I'm very disappointed with that.
The dreamer was in the same profession as you. He's a preacher.
Yes.
Has the pulpit lost its power on the people?
Maybe it has, to some degree. There again, the signs of the times, when we see the various things that are happening in the culture now, and with all of what we as preachers sometimes cease to do and cease to be, we contribute, I think, to the demise of what people look to us as pastors in terms of being disappointed about our actions, about the things that we do along that line.
We're in your pulpit, your domain. This is where you come alive.
Yes.
What do you say now? What is in your heart and your soul now to emanate from here, from the pulpit?
Well, I'm concerned about the salvation of people, which to me is the main message of what the Bible is about. The hero of the Bible is Jesus. The theme of the Bible is Jesus saves. And I sense that my return is to the rootage and the basics of what the Bible talks about, being salvation of the souls of men.
Finally, we celebrate on November 10th.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? What does that say to you about celebrating 50 years here in this pulpit?
Yes, well, first of all, I had no idea that I would live this long. Secondly, I was very young, very wild, made an awful lot of mistakes, did a whole lot of wrong. People made many accusations of me, many of which were false, but many of which was also true. I'm very, very sorry for the things that I did that misled people and may have hurt some people along the way, not being the kind of model or pattern or person that I should have been. But I had to learn as I went along, and I've come to know that wisdom is one of those things that you do not get in youth. Wisdom and youth do not go hand in hand. Wisdom only comes after time has been plowed. And I just thank God for the time.
We thank God for you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Congratulations, Reverend Jasper Williams, for 50 years of pastoring.